reconvene the public session. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're in public session. So, just so everyone knows, tonight's agenda is going to be changed up a little bit. We're going to go to some part of our normal, then we're going to switch out and return back. So next on the agenda, we're going to go with student presentations. My senior and my junior over there. Good evening, guys. How are you? Good evening. Okay. Tyler's on you.
So just want to say it's good to be back. Sorry I haven't been here the past couple of meetings.
You were handling business.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. We understand.
First, the juniors just finished the NJGPA, which I had to take, obviously. I wouldn't say it was fun, but, you know, we got it done. So, yeah, just finished that. And for next week, the Black Student Union is holding Culture Night on March 20th from 5 to 7 p.m. where there'll be food, performances, games, etc. People can just get together and have fun. And leading up to that, they are having a Spirit Week. On Monday, in acknowledgement of Women's History Month, there's going to be a Breast Cancer Awareness Day where students will wear all shades of pink. On Tuesday, it's going to be old-fashioned streetwear, like an 80s to 2005, where students can just freely dress how they want to. On Wednesday, it's going to be a BET Day, where it's dressed as your favorite African-American comedian, actor, musician, anybody you want to. On Thursday, it would be a Heritage Rep Your Flag Day, so the colors of where you're from or where your family's from. And on Friday, to end it off, would be an Afro Love Day, where people dress in red, green, or black to showcase unity of Black diaspora. And that's going to start next week, and they'll start making announcements for it starting tomorrow to let everybody know. The Spanish Club soccer tournament called the PHS Champions League from 3 to 6 p.m. will be on March 21st, where there's going to be a bunch of teams. Students sign up. They run it tournament style, and they just play in the gym, set a couple goals up, and see who wins, and then you get trophies, and then you get snacks, and the concession stands will all be up, so it's a fun time for all the students to be able to come and get together. And the Road Cap are holding a high school voter registration drive on March 25th, where you must be 17 plus, obviously, and you just need to bring your license ID or your last 4 digits of your social security number to get students to be able to register to vote if they don't know how to or they can't go anywhere else to. And as we're moving on from the winter season, all the spring season sports are starting. So like boys volleyball, track, girls flag football, all of those tryouts are happening right now. And then for the club that me and Tomvi are in, SAD, all of the events that just happened, and there will be up a bunch more that are about to take place. I'll let her talk about that.
Thank you, Tyler. Like Tyler mentioned, SAD, there's a lot of upcoming events this month. So starting off with our event next week with the Piscataway Police Department. It's the Open Forum event. We'd love to have you guys there. It's at the YMCA. Starts around 6:30, so we'd love to see you all. Pretty much just to bring more awareness about the stuff we're doing, and it's in collaboration with the Safe Streets campaign that the Piscataway Police Department has been holding the past couple months. We also have a field trip to the police department on April 9th, which we're really excited about, to go test out some of the drunk goggles and just see all the activities and what kind of goes around in the police department. So some of the STAD students will be going, including us. We have the Walk the Chalk event during school on March 24th, which we're going to write a bunch of nice messages in the parking lots, which is something new that we've never done before, so we're really excited about that as well. On the 27th and the 28th of March, we have the presentation to the PE classes for juniors and seniors to kind of talk about what our goals are and what we've been doing for the campaign, and we're going to have people from the New Jersey Brain Alliance come and kind of talk about our efforts and, you know, prepare for our report at the end of this month. Another big event that we're also looking forward to is the FBLA Mission Life event, which is an annual basketball event that they host in the month of March. That will be on April 4th. I believe it's 6 p.m., so we'd also love to have you guys there. SAD's actually doing the halftime there, so usually there's concession stands, and we have a fun little activity planned, so that's something to look forward to as well. Going on FBLA, I sound like this because I just got back from the FBLA SLC trip. So that was from Monday through Wednesday, which was really fun but very tiring. So we had 72 finalists go on the trip and 31 placed to go to nationals. So we're very, very proud, and it was really, really exciting. This is probably the biggest year we took, the most amount of students, so we're really, really thrilled about that. It's always really nice. As a senior, this is my third year going, so it's nice to see how more and more students come and join, and see how supportive Piscataway is as a whole. You know, every time we see someone on stage, we're all cheering and clapping, and it's just really nice to get that school spirit there. Moving on from FBLA, National Honor Society is hosting a food drive this week. We're accepting canned goods in collaboration with Elijah's Promise, so that's something that a lot of the National Honor Societies is getting involved with. Students are also eligible to win a $25 gift card if they donate a can, and they could be placed in a raffle, so that's a good incentive. I know today they had a mandatory prom meeting for seniors. Love to hear it. Love to hear all the senior stuff coming up. I know a lot of you guys already asked me about college decisions, so that will be coming out in the next coming weeks. So I'll keep you all posted. So yeah, prom is coming up, and they are kind of wrapping up on the year. I know a lot of the scholarships are being posted, a lot of decisions. So it's a really exciting time for seniors. ICCA is hosting their international night. I believe that's next Friday. That's also an annual event, and it's very exciting to see the culture that they bring, and just see all the students come around and support one another. Speaking on culture, MSA hosted their iftar, their annual iftar event last night, which was a huge success as always. It's really nice to see students come and support the fellow Muslims here at the high school, and I know it's a big thing Piscataway prides ourselves on. I know there's a field trip coming up for the JA Women's Future Leadership Academy. I know some of the students, a part of the Health Academy, is going on March 21st. It'll be hosted at Rutgers Business School, so that's something for students to look forward to, as well as American Sign Language Honor Society, which is new this year and really, really exciting. They're having their first meeting on March 20th, so it's really nice to see that those students involved in that language is being represented and having that opportunity to engage in cool activities as well. Read Across America, the field trip with National English Society, was last Friday, and I went on them. That was really fun. It's really fun to see all the students, all the little kids, super excited and hearing us read books. A lot of students went this year, so that was really exciting as well. The choir is hosting their annual coffee house on March 28th. I know they're looking for auditions right now, so that's also something students can participate in and get active in. And I know Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the drama club host, it's a huge success, so it was really nice to see that. I know a lot of students were in it and a lot of students attended it, so it's really nice to see all the fun things happening here at the high school. So that's it.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
First of all, congratulations on all the SAD events and the awards, and you guys are fantastic. A couple of questions. The YMCA, do you know what night that is, the 6:30?
Yes. It is Tuesday, March 18th.
March 18th?
6:30 to 8:30.
6:30 to 8:30?
It
And
is on speeding.
Tyler, the voter registration drive, do you know what day that's on?
March 25th.
25th.
Yes.
All right, thank you. You guys do a fantastic job with these reports. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you too for coming out this evening and updating us on the rest of March and all the events that are going on in the district. As always, it's been a pleasure having you, but I know you've been running for a couple of days, and I know you're ready to go home and get some rest. And Tyler, I'm sure you have things to do as well. So we know you're going to leave, get home safely, and thanks again for coming out and keeping us informed on what's going on throughout the high school, through all 4 grade levels. Have a good one.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, personnel, Ms. Nancy Salgado-Cohen.
Be it resolved that the following motions identified as items A through F be approved as presented.
Second.
Mr. Secretary, can you take the roll?
Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Rivers? Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Stafford?
Yes.
Mrs. Salgado Cowan?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Abstain from B1 and yes to the rest.
Okay, I would like to take this opportunity, now that motion has gone through, to welcome Dr. Johanna Roberto, who is here tonight. She will be stepping in for us after Dr. Ranelli goes for his retirement, and we look forward to working with you.
And I look forward to coming. I do. Thank you. I've been with kids longer than I care to discuss. And that's why I look so young to all of you.
Thank you. Now on to the President's Report for March 13th, 2025. Congratulations on a job well done by the Piscataway Education Foundation at our Designer Bag Bingo Tricky Tray fundraiser. The foundation gave out 125 prizes to well over 300 guests at the event held on February the 28th, raising in the amount of $19,459. I was excited to help out at the event, and it was wonderful to see so many members of our community having a good time helping our students out. In addition to money raised at the event, the foundation also received a $2,500 donation to a scholarship fund from Maggio's Food Service, bringing our total to nearly $22,000. Thank you to Maggio's and all of our contributors for your great generosity. These funds will allow the foundation to continue to expand its efforts to support our students in our schools. Tonight, our board has the bittersweet duty to say farewell to Dr. Frank Ranelli, who has been our superintendent for the past 6 years with our district for the past 11. Dr. Ranelli will be retiring from Piscataway at the end of this month, and we want to thank you for your tremendous service to Piscataway schools. When you took the helm of our district, you had a vision. You saw it through, and you took our district to the next level. You made every decision with the idea that the students were your children, and you never wavered in your advocacy for our families, teachers, and staff. You saw us through the dark days of COVID-19 pandemic with courage and strong leadership, and we are a better district and community because of your service. We're excited for you and your next chapter, and we wish you well and your family the best. Thank you for everything, Dr. Ranelli.
So, I'm very humbled, and everybody in this room, I think, knows that I don't really like all this stuff, but I will say with a heavy heart that this place means a lot to me. The decision to leave was not easy, but I'll say this, I appreciate the words. I do think we are leaving this place in a really good position because of all the people in this room here. And then since January, when we discussed me leaving at the end of March, I've been very humbled about the things that we've been able to do, right? I'm kind of reminded of all the great things, and not even realizing, because it's never been about me, right? It's never been about the work that I've done. It's been about the work that everybody does and putting the right people in the right spot so they can work for kids. And I'll throw it right back at you all. I don't know that you realize the great work that the board does. And when you walk out of here every day for a meeting, or all the time you put in, I don't know that you realize the impact that you're making on kids and the district and the community and society. So I'll throw it right back to you. I really appreciate the support, and I couldn't thank you enough for this time and trusting in me and trusting in the people in this room. So thank you very much, and I will absolutely miss Piscataway.
And Dr. Ranelli, having overlapped with you for the last 11 years, is that thank you for all that time. And I want to leave you with a quote that fits you, and that is, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. And thanks for all that time as leading the school board.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Superintendent?
Mr. Chair, before we move on,
Sure.
I'd like to just go back to the personnel. I believe you also want to abstain on item D. If you'd like to correct your vote before we
Okay,
move
so
on.
wait a minute, that's an abstain from B1 and item D as well for Ms. Cherry.
Thank you, and I will reflect the record accordingly.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, time for the superintendent's report. Thank you very much. As always, please check out our superintendent's report on our website in the Superintendent's Corner. Highlights this month include the community outreach activities, wonderful family nights in our schools, all the high school awards and activities that our reps explained are in here, our winter sports updates and our spring sports, getting ready to gear up there. But a real fun article about Dr. Connors, right on the front page there, about him actually addressing our chem club at our high school regarding his dissertation research and things like that. So inspiring kids, throughout his entire life. So we appreciate that. Okay, so Gary Miller is not here. He left after he took pictures and was in the permanent art show, but I want to talk about a couple things that he was directly involved in. Number one, Parent Square, right? It's a communication system that has gone out to our community, and I'll read a couple things because I think it's really important. This week we launched Parent Square, our new district-wide communication platform. I'm pleased to report it went very smoothly with great feedback from parents and staff. As of earlier this evening, the number of registered users was 2,868, which is fantastic for only a few days. More than a quarter of our total number. Everyone should be receiving a notification at 8 p.m. tonight, so in about 15 minutes, with this, and which include a full link to the newsletter. It goes to our website as well, our top stories, a video of the month, but the most important thing, and it's part of the goals that we have to my left here, is it's translatable to any language they choose, right? So right now, when they would get this, it's not translatable, but as of tonight, it will be. So we're really excited about opening that door to the communication to our families in whatever language they need it to be and to effectively communicate with them. So we're really happy with that. As a reminder, if you don't register, you'll still get the messages and emergency messages and things like that, but you get the full experience if you register for the account. Obviously, it's free. It's kind of walk through easy when you register. If you need help doing that, you could always call your school desks, main offices. So we appreciate that. Also, congratulations to Gary Miller. I'm sorry he's not here. He was named Citizen of the Year by Piscataway Elks this year for his dedication and involvement in the community, keeping the community in touch, really celebrating Piscataway at every turn he possibly can. So we are really lucky to have Gary Miller here in the district, and he is well deserving of that honor. At this time, David Oliveira and myself will kind of come around the other side of the table, and we have a budget presentation for the 2025-26 budget. So I know Mr. Oliveira will go over the budget calendar at the end of the presentation, but just to give you a little glimpse of that, tonight we'll do the presentation, and then we'll go through what we need to with the county, and then on the second meeting in April, you'll be voting to adopt the budget. Okay? All right, so we don't have a ton of slides, but we have enough to really make sure you understand how we built this. And we built it. How David built it, right? Exactly. I say we, right? And what went into the discussions, how long it took, really all of the ins and outs, and what the results are, and why we chose this avenue for the results. All right. So budget guidelines, what we have to do, curricular instruction, district technology initiatives, special education. You could read those things there, but I think the guidelines are really important. I'll talk about what drives our budget in 2 slides, but just take a second to look at that. All right? Basically, as we've been speaking about tonight, we really are interested in the parents' needs and the student needs, right? No matter what needs they have, right? We know students come to us with all different sets of needs, and it's really important that we try to meet them where they are and stretch every possible way we can so they can challenge themselves. All right, more budget guidelines. Safety and security has always been at the top of my list. One of our goals is to recruit and retain staff. Health benefits is, David is constantly monitoring those and making sure he invests in the capital improvements of the buildings and maintain the cost efficiency. All right. He'll talk more about fund balance and capital reserve later in the presentation. So I have the things up there with the little boxes that, David put it up there. About what drives our budget. But really what drives our budget is the 9 of you sitting in your seats and the posters that are on the walls, right? So from the mission statement to the strategic planning, to the yearly goals, to the board goals, that's what drives our budget. So again, I said it before when I was sitting down, you really don't have any idea what kind of impact you're making on our future, right? The important role that you play, the dedication that you have, and it's been great working with you all. But that's what drives our budget. The things there, but also the things that are on the walls, the posters, right? Our goals, the time you put in to make sure that we have a clear direction. And it's not just, well, this program sounds great, let's bring this in. Or this looks great, let's bring this in. We do the research, we're dedicated, and we try to do things. Our staff is fantastic, right? Our teachers, our associations, our custodians, everybody. We try to do things to the best of our ability to make sure we have top-notch things here. All right, now we start with the numbers. I'm done.
Good evening. So we view our job each year with this budget presentation to inform you, the board, and the community about kind of where we are financially as a district, but also overall on the state scene, where things stand. For those of you that aren't on the finance committee, that get kind of monthly updates. So, we go into a bit of the nooks and crannies and try and get you to understand where we as a district, but also again the state, where it's headed financially, because it impacts our budget decisions that we make. So this is a pie chart of our sources of revenue. The biggest is our tax levy. That's what the homeowners in the township of Piscataway pay. Followed by state aid, which is a big topic of discussion this year for us. Next, we have fund balance, which that is excess money from one budget year that we have to roll over and use in a future budget year. And then lastly are a couple small categories. I call other state aid here. That's a piece of what we call extraordinary aid primarily. Those are for high-cost special needs children. And it's kind of an estimate. We don't get the number for that until the end of the existing fiscal year. So that's why it's carved out from the regular state aid number here. Okay? And then miscellaneous revenue are just localized revenues that we generate from tuition, rentals, interest, our SREC sales, things like that. So I wanted to kind of put this up here. This was a slide from last year, and it's not even really directly related to Piscataway. But if you read that quote, last year was a really topsy-turvy year for state aid. The S2 funding formula was fully implemented, and there were a lot of drastic changes. If you recall, we got a $4.8 million increase in state aid. We were celebrating. But other districts not so lucky, and I just picked a neighboring district as an example. And I added a highlight of, what their state aid is for this year. So they had an increase 2 years ago, decrease last year that we talked about how that was a $10 million swing, and then this year they're a $767,000 increase. Again, that's just to show you how another district outside of Piscataway, how the formula is just swinging drastically, and it's impacting not just us, but everyone across the state. So I mentioned S2 was the funding reform bill that was implemented over a multi-year period. That was fully implemented last year. We had a number of changes this year in the state aid formula. My association has been lobbying for the state to consider some adjustments, and they have been listening. The new commissioner is a former assistant commissioner for finance at the Department of Education, so NJ Asbo is really happy about that. And they made some changes, but it did have an impact. They went to a 3-year average for using these factors here for equalized valuation and district income. We thought that that was helpful. It kind of smooths out any peaks and troughs. They used to use an estimated amount of special education children in every single district. They would apply 15.9% to your total enrollment and estimate that that was your number of special education children. This year, well, again, I say this year, the next year, the state aid for next year, they actually used actual special education enrollment. This actually hurt us. 878 children is what is in our calculation. That's our actual number projected for next year. If they had used the 15.9% and a comparison to last year, we would have had about 1,082 considered special education. So it impacted us a little bit in state aid, but also it shows, we're not one of these overzealous districts that is overclassifying children, right? We want least restrictive environment, we want them with their peers, etc. The other big change this year, and I'll get into later, is PEA, preschool money. If the preschool had what they call carryover, essentially like surplus or fund balance, the state this year took 25% of it and reclaimed it. And they did so by reducing your preschool aid. I just got a broadcast from my state association at 4:30 today that there might be some ways to adjust that a little bit, but it's too early to know if we'll be able to recoup some of that money. Fluctuating multipliers had an impact on our equalization aid calculation. It really impacted what's called our local fair share, which I've talked about before, and I'll get into in some slides down the road. Because of the drastic changes in district state aid, they capped any increase a district could get at 6%, and they capped any decrease at 3%. Again, that was to smooth out their adjustments. The DOE is not naive to the fact that their formula keeps spitting out these drastic changes, but nobody seems to really have figured out how to make it smooth and consistent for districts, which is really all us BAs are asking for. So here's our state aid history. We had a couple of years all in the same neighborhood. Then we had a nice big $4.8 million increase, okay? And then this year, in 23-24, we lost to $530,000. This current year we're in, we gained $4.8 million, and then for next year we have a nearly $800,000 loss, okay? So again, unpredictable. Makes it hard to budget and plan when this is the case. Okay. So state aid as a percentage of our budget. For many years, we were in this 14, 15% bracket, and if you go back actually before this, prior to 2016, 2017, kind of 14%, 14.5%, that was kind of the sweet spot. We got some increases in state aid, that one year where we lost money, and then we rocketed back up with the $4.8 million increase, and we're moving down again. My concern is that looking forward, we might be headed back down towards 14% roughly, and what does that mean? Who makes up the difference?
The taxpayers.
Yeah, they expect us to make it up locally. Of course, they tie our hands a little bit with percentage caps, but they expect us to make up the difference. So, uncapped SFRA aid. That is, if they ran the formula pure and made no adjustments, no limitations, nothing, this is what they say we should get in aid. And if you look here, there's something that really stands out. If they ran the formula pure this year, we would have lost $13.5 million.
Wow.
Okay? Not good news. Last year we were fully funded, or the current year we're currently in, we were fully funded, according to their formula. $13.5 million decrease I just mentioned. So we could have gotten an additional $12.7 million cut in state aid, because they cut us $800,000. This is where the cap I mentioned earlier really helped a district like us. So in analyzing state aid, the biggest category is equalization aid typically, and these are some of the factors that impact it. Because of that large decrease we should have gotten, they got very cute with how they allocated the money, and they increased artificially some of our categorical aid money. Not too, that's more BA stuff. At the end of the day, we're looking at the top level number for state aid and where we are and where we could have been.
David, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
We discussed this a lot, but equalization aid is the adequacy budget minus the local share, and the local share is the 50% district income and 50% property valuation with those factors.
Yep.
But you've taught me to make up tables over the years of how things have changed. How do you feel about the fact that our local share which basically is supposed to be an estimate of how rich your district is, versus how much you can collect in property tax, that disparity is getting worse and worse. In other words, right now, over a 10-year period, we've gone from $90 million local share calculation to $150 million, but our property tax has only gone from about 90 to 105. So do you think that there's that this is a factor, that this local share calculation keeps getting larger than what we actually do collect?
It does concern me. There's some slides later that will address it, but
Okay.
I mean, generally speaking, it does concern me. So if, after we go through those slides, I haven't
Okay,
addressed it specifically, we'll come back to that.
all right, thanks.
Enrollment's a factor in how they calculate the aid. The good news for us is that our enrollment has kind of stabilized over the last 5 years. We had fears of decreases. It has been stable, which is great. Unfortunately, the projections moving forward look like it might start to go down a little bit again over the next couple of years. We'll wait and see. Our special education students have been increasing. The next chart will show you that. Our LEP students have gone up just from 23-24 to this year that we're currently in. It went up 58 students. Okay, continues to be a large population. And our free and reduced percentage from last year to this year went up from 36.9 to 44.3. Again, not really a surprise. I talked about, certainly with the committee, but I think even in the public board meetings, they use the New Jersey Medicaid numbers to upload. And so we really captured some families who maybe historically were not filling out the free and reduced lunch applications. Not unique to us, happened for all districts across the state. Here's graphical representation of the enrollment. The orange is regular education and the blue is special education. It doesn't appear as drastic, but you can see from 23-24 to 24-25 up nearly 40 students, and you know, we're projecting to maintain that for next year. This is a chart that demonstrates and kind of shows the leveling off and the stability. The way the state aid calculations work is they take 2 3-year windows and they compare your growth percentage. So the 2 green numbers showed when they used those figures, you know, we had a 112 student drop. Okay, that contributed to our reduction in state aid in 23-24. The purple numbers got a little closer. They were only 18 away, okay? And then the 2 yellow numbers, thankfully, are stable, 68-14 to 68-21 for that rolling average. The issue with the current state aid calculation isn't our enrollment. It's other factors, okay, because our enrollment has stabilized. Okay, this is the same slide from last year. Again, equalization aid, some key words there. The adequacy budget is the state's calculation of how much we should be spending to educate the children adequately. Very generic word. Local fair share is their determination of how much the taxpayers of Piscataway should be paying for that education. And equalization aid is meant to be that gap between what they say the budget should be and how much we're paying for it. The state says we'll make up that difference. Okay. So this table is meant to show, you can see the adequacy budget is going up each year, okay? Went up $11 million from the current year to what's projected for next year. Look at our local fair share.
Mm-hmm.
The state is now saying that our adequacy budget is $149 million, and they're saying that the taxpayer should be paying all $149 million.
It's crazy.
That's what I was trying to say.
Now, last year there was a $12 million difference. They said, okay, the state, we owe you $12 million to meet that. The way the formula worked, this went up $11 million, the local fair share went up $24 million.
Whoa.
Okay? So we're $39.5 million short in our tax levy. It's a big number. Nobody expects us to get there, and quite frankly, the formula could change when we're sitting here again next year. Okay,
Right.
but the reality is that the state's saying the taxpayers are underfunding the education of Piscataway students. By comparison, last year the shortfall was $21 million. So in 1 year, our shortfall in funding for the local fair share went from 21 million to 39.5 million. Okay?
But to your point, that slide though, the passage of the legislation to cap at 3% of,
Well, the troubling part is, Tom, is it wasn't even legislation. It was just
Oh, it was-
the governor and the DOE's application of the formula. They said, we're not going to give it any district more than a 6% increase, and we're not going to give any
right,
district more
so
than
the
a 3%
3%
decrease.
saved us from, we only lost 800,000, but we could have lost,
Another 12.8 million, not thousand.
Million.
And of course, the troubling piece about it is, next year, this time, we'll have a new governor, and nobody seems to think that the state is trending upwards with revenue. You know, they expect a bit of a flattening period. Another key factor in the formula is the ratables. You know, I have here what the mix is here. The ratables went up. According to the county, Piscataway has the 6th highest total ratables in the entire county. Okay, so is that about 24 towns? Good news for you homeowners. The average assessed home went from 449,000 nearly to 520,000. So the value of your real estate's going up. Unfortunately, that means the amount of state aid you're getting is going down. So, because this has a direct impact on the formula. The average assessed home, Piscataway is the 7th highest in the entire county. Again, I mean, that reflects the positivity of the community. People want to live here. The house prices are quite high compared to other parts of the community. The downside of that is that the state says, well, that means you have more burden to pay for the education of the children. And I put this up here just as a reminder because the property valuations. I actually think Piscataway is doing the right thing, revaluing every year on a 5-year rolling basis. As a business person, as a you know, really a citizen, I think it's the right thing. The problem is, in my mind, that Piscataway is one of the few towns in the state that's doing that.
Right.
And so all the other towns that aren't doing that, when the counties and the state go and they figure out this equalized valuation, where they have to try and make everybody's valuations in the county on the same plane, towns that maybe haven't revalued since the early 80s, you have an accountant or an actuary like me behind a desk looking at sales numbers and kind of guesstimating what the equalized valuation is for those towns and trying to make them fair and comparable across the entire county. There's more fudge factor than when you have annual rolling revaluations that Piscataway is doing. I don't have numbers, but I'm convinced that this is part of the drastic swing in the increase in what Piscataway's local fair share is.
but can I just make a statement that, having done this for a while, and that is that there's a misunderstanding every year in Piscataway when people get their tax bills and look at it. And what I heard you say is beyond the property tax levy, our piece of 17% of our revenue from state aid is actually being hurt by the fact that we are one of the few towns that are doing reassessments.
I believe it is.
And I believe it is too, and I'm going to state that publicly, and I feel that way.
And again, I think Piscataway Township is doing the right thing. I just wish the state would mandate that other towns do the right thing.
Right.
This 11.6 billion here, by the way, so when they equalize it and try and make it fair and comparable with the other towns, our number only goes from 11.6 billion to 11.9 billion. So what does that mean? We are really close to what the fair value is in the market. Okay, we're at 97.5% of what the fair value is. There's towns that are down around 20%, and they get, again, an accountant / actuary is kind of juicing the numbers based on recent sales and whatever. There's more room for manipulation. I'm not accusing anybody of anything illicit, but it's not the same as revaluing every year. It's just not. So now we get to the tax levy. So if, in years past, I always, basically every year I've been here, I always kind of started with tax levy because it's the biggest piece. But because of the impact of state aid this year, I kind of flipped the slides a little bit and went through that state aid discussion. And now we're at the tax levy, which is the biggest piece of the budget. And really, it was to give you the explanation as to why we're asking for a fairly significant tax levy increase this year. All right? So I said earlier, the tax levy is 74% of the budget. The exceptions are still in place. It can only go up 2% a year. We'll never get to 149 million if we just go up 2% a year. It's just not possible mathematically, okay? Because that number will keep growing as well. Except for a few things, healthcare costs, Tom's two favorite words in the dictionary, bank cap. And the healthcare cost waiver, which is one of the waivers that we're allowed to increase the levy above 2%. The state plan went up 14% in their healthcare costs this year.
Wow.
So that healthcare waiver was available. Okay?
I'm sorry, does the healthcare waiver cover that increase, or it just gives a portion towards it?
So the healthcare waiver allows us, if our healthcare costs are going up above 2%, to raise the levy, the tax levy, higher than 2%.
Okay,
But only as high as the 14% that the state plan was going up. If we were going up 20%,
I got
we couldn't get all 20%. The 4%, the 14% is kind of the ceiling.
you.
So you take the difference, which
If the
is.
state plan,
well,
sorry,
yeah,
Tom, if the
okay.
state plan wasn't going up and we were going up 10%,
Right,
that's all on us. There's no
Yeah.
waiver available.
got it.
And the way the math works is that 2%, 14%, the difference is 12. You take 12% of your medical costs minus prescription and dental, and say that's 10 million. So it's 12% of 10 million,
Million.
whatever it is.
Right.
You add that as a percentage to your 2% increase.
Right.
So that's where that money comes from.
Okay.
But who pays for it? Taxpayer.
On bank cap, I think everybody here knows what it is. I've been over it a lot of times every year. We had 1.366 million available this year, and that was because, and I'll point this out, because of the increase we're going to be asking for this year. Remember, last year we only asked for a 1% tax increase, okay? So we really tried to, when we got that large state aid increase, we cut back on the tax levy increase, all right? And we generated bank cap in that process. We're recommending this year that we use 1.1 million of bank cap, which would leave us 266,000 available for the next 2 budget years. So, this is our current year levy, 104 million. That's a far cry from 149 million. The 2% increase of 2,081,870 is there. Use of bank cap of 1.1 million. The healthcare cost waiver of 2.5 million would get us to a tax levy of 109 million. That's a 5.5% increase in the tax levy. Okay. We know that's significant, but again, just for comparison's sake, even after all these increases we're recommending for next year, we're $40 million less than where the state says we should be. This chart shows you what we've done with tax levy increases over the last 10 years. So the orange line is the average. This is for the general fund. This excludes, back when we used to have debt, this excludes that. And the 10-year average general fund tax levy, including the 5.5 this year, would mean 2.5% each year over the 10-year period. Not bad, okay? You can see 6 of the years were under the 2.5%, and then we have 4 years where we would be over, with this current recommendation for next year being the highest.
That's a great slide, it really is. For the community.
Another piece of information, again, because when we talk about the budget and why we're recommending this, why we're doing what we're doing, I pulled up the most recent year they had available was 22-23, so it's a couple of years dated, but we can only go as fast as the state of New Jersey DOE goes with this information. Piscataway is ranked 19th out of 24 school districts in Middlesex County for how much we spend on general fund money per kid, per pupil. Okay. Highland Park was the top at 26,500. and we are at 19,700, basically. Okay? The only ones less than us were, Edison was the biggest one less than us, and there were a couple other smaller districts. I couldn't fit all 24 on here, but you can see a lot of our, what I consider comparable type districts, you know, Sayreville, similar size, South Plainfield, a neighbor, a little smaller, but our neighbor, South Brunswick, pretty comparable, North Brunswick, Old Bridge, Woodbridge is much bigger, but again, gives you an idea of where we are. So, when we ask for the additional tax levy money, because the state is shorting us, there's a reason we're asking for it. That's really the message here. So what's the other impact of the state aid decrease? I talked about fund balance. That's basically surplus from one year applied to a future budget. Ideally, I budget that for items that if the money went away tomorrow, we wouldn't have to spend it.
Right.
What I call non-recurring expenses. So last year, the current year we're in, all of our fund balance was allocated to non-recurring expenses. Of the 8.7 million we have this year, 4.5 million of it is for non-recurring expenses, but 4.2 million are for recurring expenses, such as employee salaries, all right? I told Frank, I'm not worried about that. We have this year to kind of let the numbers shake out. We've done a good job every year. Once we're in the budget year, managing the budget, we end up with a surplus to be able to fund capital reserve to do the projects that we'd like to do. So I'm comfortable heading into this year. I just want to make the board aware that even with that high tax levy increase, it's not like, oh, we're covering all of our recurring expenses.
Right.
Okay? But some of the things in the 4.5 million I talked about, instructional technology, we have Promethean board rollout. We did 2 schools last summer. We're doing 4 schools this summer. Okay? And then the following summer, we hope to knock off at least the rest of the K-8s and perhaps some of the high school. And really move into the high school as well. We have some maintenance equipment that we budget for. If we needed the money for something else, we don't have to buy that equipment. But if it's there, we have some items that could be replaced. And then I put in some hedges, right, for inflation, in benefit costs, and out-of-district tuition costs, et cetera. So that's examples of non-recurring expenses that the surplus is used for. So, summary, the school aid funding formula is fully funded. The governor touts that in his speech last year and this year. The state aid is unpredictable, okay, due to fluctuations. And the best information I can give you now is based on what the discrepancy is between our local fair share and our tax levy. My projections for the future are that we're going to have more decreases. I'm not telling you that because I have the inside scoop on the formula, because you just don't know. We've seen the unpredictability of it, but that is my best guess of where we are at the moment. Generally speaking, the tax levy increases are limited to 2% plus waivers. Bank cap, we'll have 266,000 left. The other option that some districts are getting to is you can go above the cap if you put a question out to the voters. So for items aside of for healthcare costs, you can put question out to voters to go above the cap. I'm not suggesting we need to do that yet. I planted this seed just so everyone's aware it's an option last year. I just leave it there to know, you know, at some point in the future, we may or may not have to consider that. We're not there yet.
One question, David, and that is that we as a board were looking in 2022 to keep going with our debt service to do projects. And that debt service basically gets turned into a percentage to be put onto the, tax levy. And we don't have that anymore. Do you think we're in a good position to go back to debt service if we choose to, because we chose not to do those projects?
Good position from whose perspective?
From our financial,
Oh, we're very financially sound. I mean, we have no debt. We have a good bond rating. We'd have to get re-rated, but I mean, there's no issue there. And when we went out for our ESIP, we got a very low interest rate.
Okay.
We've always made our payments. That's not the issue. The real challenge with any referendum is getting voter approval. I was just talking to Frank earlier today. What we're paying attention to is At that time, we were talking about an $80 to $100 million referendum. There's no, we don't have to do that large of a referendum, let's say.
Right.
That's what I'm
Districts are
saying,
doing
that-
smaller ones, right? So, I keep track, most of you guys know I got spreadsheets and all over the place, and I keep track of what we've actually, I have that original list from that referendum discussion a couple of years ago. And I keep track of what we've been able to do in district with capital reserve, what my maintenance team has been doing, and I keep track of how much we've saved by maintenance due. For example, the most prominent example is burglar alarm upgrades. There was the architect projected, outside contractor prevailing wage cost, and then there's the cost of what, my guys working hand in hand with a prevailing wage contractor was able to do. And we've saved quite a bit, and we've checked off some of those items. So there may be a time that, and we have a couple projects going now, there's a future slide, and I have the big one that I want to accomplish before I sail off into the sunset years down the road, and that's the K-8 bathrooms. I really want to upgrade these kids' bathrooms.
Well, what I was getting at for the board was that if we wanted to go back to funding projects that we did not go with, and we choose some, we would have to do a referendum bond question to bond that money, and it would become debt service that would keep going forward on top of the tax law.
Yeah, if there were a number of
That's the
projects,
point I was
like,
trying to make.
one of the ones we talked about was the science classrooms at the high school. If we wanted to redo that, that would be a significant enough cost where we might want to consider that. The locker rooms at the high school, they're dated, they're used differently. Even the locker rooms at the middle schools, Bill will tell you, they can be used better than what they currently are. They just need to be updated. So you start to piece a couple of those projects together. As good as we've done with capital reserve, it'll be hard to pull that off, but it might not be an $80 to $100 million referendum, it might be a $30 million one, So, yeah, that's where we are with that.
Okay.
So with all of this conversation has to do with where we are financially and what we're asking for the taxpayers and why we're asking, but let's not lose sight of the focus, and that's the kids. All of the things that we do start with the wonderful staff that we have, but also has to do with our facilities, also has to do with everything that we're rolling into, making sure we can pull the things that we have on these next two slides off. And our educational initiatives for next year, the next couple of slides. You'll notice that there's not a lot of revamping of curriculum. Like I said before, like we really do a lot of research. We want our research to prove that we chose the right product, we chose the right curriculum, we implemented the standards for a long period of time, and we get really good at it, right? On this slide here, obviously the science of reading, well documented in our curriculum committee meetings and with Dr. B, tutorial services, transition, social emotional learning. So you'll see the theme of really offering the good supports to kids, right? So, but things on that list are not free, right? Freshman seminar, how we deal with that, right? We have a whole summer academy for freshman seminar, a whole week for them. The peer mentoring, post-secondary transition. You all approve, some of my crazy ideas, which included a college and career counselor, right? Which is extremely important for our district and our kids. But again, those are initiatives that we need to continue to fund to make sure we meet the kids where they are, right? We try our best to do in-house curriculum design and alignments, and Dr. B and his team do a great job. And we try to make an all-inclusive curriculum and a foundation, right? We try not to use the word program, right? We want to build blocks that are going to be with the district, long after any of us leave. And that's a sign of good leadership and good decisions by the board and the administration and things like that. All right, and a huge part of the budget is technology, right? Every district deals with it, right? Whatever device they choose to deliver the instruction, for Piscataway it happens to be an iPad, right? It remains in place, and we purchase 2 grades, right? 2 full grades per year. So every year there's that big recurring cost of, $500,000-$600,000 for just replacing the 2 grades that we replace. The rotation plan I just spoke about. So we talk about all the time, can we do things better? And can we do things more efficiently? The student technology under review for effectiveness, right? We really want to make sure that all the grades are utilizing the iPads the way we intend them to, right? We're hearing some rumblings is the wrong word, but we're getting some information that in grade 11 and 12, they might not be using it as much as up to that grade. So can we be creative in the way we deliver that technology to those kids, right? So that's what I mean by that little bullet there. Right? And John Barchoff and his team, this whole cybersecurity, endpoint detection, I mean, that's a big part of our budget, number one, but also a very necessary part, right? You see articles in the paper about districts being hacked, for ransom, things like that. We want to make sure that our kids are understanding how to use technology safely, but unfortunately, we have to make sure all these cybersecurity things are in place. And also with the infusion of artificial intelligence, I think it's really important that we, take that information and deliver a proactive approach instead of being reactive to things that, we're not really secure about.
Preschool,
Yeah, go ahead. I was supposed to do that one. Go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Our preschool expansion aid number, 8.8 million. But I touched on this earlier, that number is net of a 25% reduction in our carryover. So they took, if you will, $251,000 off of that preschool aid number. And that's because our carryover was about $1 million. And really, again, for me, I like having a hedge, okay? Particularly, the board is well aware, we have 3 rented buildings, okay? We've been growing our employee base for preschool along with the numbers. I like to have a hedge to make sure that we can cover those costs. I mean, when we renegotiate a lease, there's some unpredictability there, okay? But the state took some of it. More to come on that. Like I said, I got a broadcast at 4:30 this afternoon, so, maybe there's some room there to recoup some of that. And just showing the growth of our program, we were an early adopter and a rapid expander of our program. 67 kids in 18-19, 557 students now. And that is only regular education students. We're projecting 28 inclusion students next year, which would bring that up to 585. And we have about 90 self-contained students that are preschool age, so that's 675 preschoolers.
Is preschool aid proportional to the number of kids you have in it?
Yes, it's
So if
based
you
on,
have a facility to put them in
it's a per pupil
per pupil.
amount.
Right.
So, for regular education. For the inclusion children, the district pays the preschool program from our general fund. We pay that tuition rate to the preschool program to cover the operational costs for those inclusion children. Self-contained is entirely
Right.
on our general fund budget for the preschoolers. Reminder, we have 3 rented locations. One of those locations, the lease is expiring in August of '26. The district was approved for preschool expansion grants at 2 district school locations. We're weighing up those options. We're going to start going down the road with one of the 2 locations, and the other one will be on hold as we determine what's best for the district. And this is just a reminder, this is actually linked to the 4:30 broadcast. I've had this up there every year about preschool because transportation is expensive and it's funded through the operating budget, not the preschool budget. In our case, that's about $500,000 of outsourced contractor routes. That doesn't even include the routes that we drive internally ourselves for the preschool. Part of the broadcast, as I quickly read through it at 4:30, seems to indicate they're going to allow you to charge transportation costs above a certain threshold to the preschool program. Okay? So, which would give us a way to use some of the carryover if we wanted to try and recoup some of the stuff they're taking from us and other districts. And let's be clear, they didn't just take it from Piscataway. The reason the state did this is across the state, there was $195 million in preschool carryover in all the districts that have preschool. They looked at that and they said, that's a big pot of money. I don't blame them. We spend our money pretty well because we pay leases. There's some districts, when you put the program in your in-house buildings, you're not paying rent. And you can't charge the transportation, you have a lot of money left over. So that's where the DOE was coming from, but when you budget wisely, when you're trying to hedge and protect for future expense increases, it never feels good for the state to kind of carve some back. Before we move to an expense analysis, I want to just note one other thing, because we are not naive to the fact that you live in the community and have to answer questions. And the other point I'll make, it's linked to bank cap. Over the past 10 years, we have foregone $5.2 million in a tax levy increase. Okay, so our tax levy could be $5.2 million higher because we've let banked cap expire over that 10-year period. Again, so it goes to show the board, when possible, has tried to treat the taxpayers as fairly as possible by not just raising every single year.
Right.
We've allowed money to fall off the table because at that time we felt it was the right thing to do. Fortunately, the formula very quickly told us we're not doing the right thing. So that's where we are. Operating budget, no surprise here. Two biggest categories, salaries and benefits. We are a people-driven business. Educating children is very people-intensive. 75% of the budget. And then you see the other categories broken down here, maintenance being a large one, and transportation, the next biggest one. You can see things like supplies, quite tiny. Even tuition, out-of-district tuition, it's fairly small. Paras, aides, and subs are outsourced paras, aides, and substitutes, a growing expense category for us.
I have a question about that. So, is it more, I would imagine, based on this, that the reason we outsource that is that it's financially more beneficial for the district?
It's more cost efficient. It's a decision that was made 15 years ago.
And does that, at the end of the day, impact the student negatively?
We're blessed in that a lot of the paras that we have, even when they made that transition, just transitioned to the outsourced company, and they remain with us from year to year.
Okay.
There is a level of stability. Would there be even more stability if they were in-house employees? Possibly. But it was certainly a financial decision that was made 15 years ago, and I think it still is financially beneficial to the district, despite it being a growing cost.
Okay.
Personnel costs, we review staffing requests every year. We left up here what our class size board policy recommendations are that we try and achieve. We're always looking at the high school classes sizes to make sure that they're efficient. Again, and all this is important. Class size, yes, we don't want classes too high, but remember, although we've stabilized for a couple-year period, we really had to examine it because enrollment was decreasing. And naturally, decreasing enrollment means there's probably smaller class sizes that you may have to collapse and combine a little bit. Recruiting and retaining staff continues to be a challenge, particularly in high needs areas like special education, your sciences, your languages, etc. I don't know that that's going away anytime soon. There's less and less folks in the teacher pipeline. I talked about the 75%. Our health benefit costs are going up 9.8%. Okay. That's on the gross cost basis, which is how it's analyzed for the health cost waiver. But I say gross cost because that does not include the amount that employees contribute to their benefits. When you factor that in, based on my projections, it's actually more like a 13% increase. Why is it going up if employees are contributing? Well, when you compare the net amounts, it's going up because employees are now going to start to contribute less because we've kind of hit that tipping point in terms of number of employees in the New Jersey Educators Health Plan, kind of a subset of the healthcare system, healthcare offerings that we have. And employees contribute less under that plan. Okay, so we've kind of hit that tipping point. So on a net basis, it costs the district the increase is more than on a gross cost basis from what the broker tells me our costs are going to go up. When we do have to look at staff, we really try and minimize the negative impacts. not a request for reductions. Actually, we have some staff additions I'll get to in a moment for the upcoming year. But we try and do it being sensitive to the people that are in our school community here. We're all a team trying to educate children, so we look to just collapse vacancies and not fill retirements, things like that, when it does come to that. So what do we have built into the budget? Staffing requests, we have 7.5 FTEs. I talked earlier about the increase in our LEP, limited English students. We have to add 4 bilingual teachers, if we can find them, okay? At the elementary and intermediate level, 2 and 2, okay? We have an autism class projected for next year, which is right at the threshold for which we will, if we get another student or 2, we will need to open up another class. So we're budgeting for an additional autism teacher because we seem to get more and more referrals. I talked about how our special education numbers have increased. We're doing that, we're going to be doing that nice, beautiful media center project, and we think it's, we need a second clerk to monitor the beautiful project once it's done. Okay? That's probably more a mid-year hire because of the scope of when the project's going to be completed, but again, we budgeted for it. We have a floating nurse who's very well utilized and really could be full-time, so we're recommending increasing the position from a part-time to a full-time position. And Frank talked about IT, how important it is. You know, we say telecom specialist, but telecom now isn't just your traditional analog phone.
Right.
It's IP based. It's really getting into broadband internet, wiring, server, switch connections, etc. So
Do we
need
have a
little help
person
in the
like
IT.
that in the district now? Are we adding?
We have one now,
Okay.
and we feel we need
A
another
second
person in training, so to speak, really to, you don't want at any point somebody to leave in any position, they're the only one who knows how to do what's happening. We keep looking at elementary staffing because we really won't know kindergarten enrollment until closer to the year. You know, we have projections for the grades 1 to 3. You know, it's looking pretty flat. Maybe we pick up a position there, maybe, but we'll wait and see. And I went back through all the budget presentations, including this one, and for the past 5 budget cycles, net, we've decreased by 3.5 FTEs in terms of our staffing requests. You know, we had 1 year, 2 years ago with the reduction in state aid, and we thought it was going to be even bigger than it was, where we really did a deep dive on positions and what I talked about with the high school schedule and collapsing vacancies and things like that. So net, you know, we've been efficient and effective. I think those are words we had on earlier slides, even with staffing.
And I think it's important to know we've gone down 3.5 positions, but we really try to deliver the best education that we can. We've gone down about 400 kids. So, you know, we really, again, with your support and the budgets, the way they lie out, we really tried to keep as much staff as we could to make the best scenarios for the kids.
Summary of the key operating expense categories. Again, staffing, salaries, and benefits. The parent sub costs for next year are projected to go up $820,000. You know, part of that is special education enrollment increases, so we have more para costs. The preschool and self-contained costs in and of itself, those 2 categories are going up $200,000, okay, for those 2 categories, due to, you know, new students. Outsourced one-to-one services. One of the other factors with our special education increase in the number of students is we're seeing them have more and more severe needs. We have more than I ever remember in terms of students requiring one-to-one nurses to travel with the child. There's not enough nurses to do that job. That's one of the reasons why we're asking for one to go from part-time to full-time, but we end up having to go to these outsource agencies to hire nurses, and that gets quite costly. Okay, and they follow the child around every day because they have medical needs that require it. So those costs are going up about 17% related to one-to-one needs for some of our highly disabled children. Utilities going up 21%. We completed the ESIP. We have solar panels, some of which need to be replaced, but irrespective of that, there was a recent auction on the supplying of power. You're gonna see an increase in your own bills as well at home. They've gone up already, they're going up more in June. Okay? PJM, who is the deliverer of electricity for this area, in an auction, they, won whatever the auction was, but their rates are being projected out to have an impact of up to 20% on our home and business utility bills in the coming months. Okay? So, sorry for the bad news, but more might be coming at home as well.
We can't handle what we're dealing with now.
I
Yeah.
know.
Thanks, David.
I know.
Not that you do it, it's not your fault.
Yeah, I had
Are there
the
any
highest
news-
home heating bill last month myself,
Are there any new synergistic companies out there?
and nothing's gonna help that. I'm thinking about putting one of those cages over my thermostat so my children can't touch it. And charter school costs. We've talked about this all 10 years I've been in district. First half dozen years, it didn't really bother me, but the last couple of years, we've seen an increase. Over the last 5 years, it's gone up about 9% per year.
Yeah.
And we're spending about $1 million, I say spending, we're transferring about $1 million to charter schools now for children that are enrolled there. Our enrollment's up in the high 60s now. It used to be
Mid-40s,
38, 39 for a lot of years.
What charter schools, so some of our students that we pay tuition for to go to charter schools?
Hatikva in East Brunswick, Teams,
Another one I can't think of it though.
I don't know, I can't think of it.
those are probably two of the bigger ones. Yeah, I have the whole list, but
But the tax money for them goes with them.
Greater Brunswick?
Exactly.
Anybody in Greater Brunswick?
maybe.
Yeah.
Franklin, couple of them, Thomas Edison.
There's one in Franklin now, is that?
There are two
Oh,
with
yeah.
Franklin.
There's two in Franklin.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, so.
We're still not, I remember going to a meeting 6 years ago, and Franklin was paying out $5 or $6 million a year for charter kids. That was 6 years ago. So we're not in that territory, thank God, but, our number has gone up. Touch on some of the facility projects. Now, facility projects, we tend to fund with capital reserve or, our Fund 12. Not a huge impact on our general fund activities, but it's important to note a few things here. We completed the ESIP this year. That's done. The interior alterations that we're doing at the high school, the media center, the esports room, the cafeteria seating, the new nurse's office, a couple tech classrooms. We awarded that bid. I've already had the preliminary meeting with the contractor. I just got a planned construction schedule today. So that's moving along. We're hoping by the end of the year, everything's done and dusted. Really, we're asking them to be done by Thanksgiving, so we'll see how that goes. Acoustical upgrades and bleachers. That is to improve the acoustics across the hall, which everybody was just in, but also up at the gym at the high school. Already had a meeting with those guys. They'll be working in the summer as well. On tonight's agenda is a resolution to approve the award of a contract for the bleachers at the SBA gym. And that'll be done also in the summer concurrently with the acoustical upgrade project. These are items that have already been or are being funded via resolutions tonight with capital reserve. So I'll get to a slide on that in a minute, but the money we save, we put it in reserve, we use it to fund projects because we don't have debt, we haven't done a referendum. The intercom, public address system, clock upgrades at the high school. We are working on we got a quote back today that we're looking at. I expect to have that on the agenda at the April 10th meeting, so we can move forward with that project in the summer. This is another item that was on our referendum list from
A few years ago.
4 years ago, that we're getting done. We've been chipping away where we can. Okay? And my great maintenance department, they're going to supervise a lot of localized projects. I mentioned earlier the burglar alarm upgrades, doing a great job with that. I just approved purchase orders for 2 more. So we're nearly done with all the buildings, the upgrades. And at a future finance committee meeting, I'll show.
But that was an important statement you
How much
made,
we
that
saved
we have
by
not
doing
been bonding money for these projects. We have been paying as we've been going based on our capital reserves, the fact that we're doing, savings and the investment program and so on. So it's an important point that we're not bonding money to these projects, we're paying cash as go as we're going.
And
We'll do some-
doing in-house some of it.
We'll do some carpet removal, tile installations in the summer, painting projects. I have a bid out on the street now to do classroom painting in 5 buildings this summer. Very successful last summer
Yeah, that
with
was
the 2
ideal.
schools. We're doing 5.
Okay.
And we're linking 4 of those buildings with their Promethean board installations this summer. It's going to be a busy summer. Things that were under consideration. How are we spending some of the capital reserve that we still have there? Solar panel replacements and roofing. Agenda item on tonight's agenda is to approve a solar consultant engineer to do step 1 of this process, which is to remove some of the problematic solar panels from the high school and the 1 inverter that's not working. It became too tight of a time frame to do anything else this summer, but what we envision for next summer is replacing the high school panels, removing the panels from Quibbletown, redoing their entire roof, except for a small portion, and putting new panels back up, and perhaps doing at Kanakamak and Shore a portion of their roofs, and same thing, remove older panels and put new ones up.
Wasn't Shore just recently outfitted with panels?
So we have a couple of phases with panels. Shore got panels in 2008,
Oh.
2008, 2009, 2012, and then they may have gotten some on this ESIP project. So the ESIP is separate. ESIP,
Oh, right, that's what it was.
some buildings got solar panels on the ESIP that was part of a PPA. We don't own those.
Okay.
That's what helped to fund the ESIP, but we have a couple different tranches of solar panels. Fellowship Farm alterations, that is one of the locations, that's this building. That's one of the locations for the preschool, where we think we have the opportunity to add preschool classrooms with the upper half of this building. Eisenhower Addition is the other potential preschool location. We're tabling that one at the moment, but we have been approved by State of New Jersey. K-8 bathroom upgrades, I mentioned that. That's big for me. That's really, one of the ones that I want to get to next. And we always tend to do, this summer we're not doing paving and concrete, we have enough going on, but each summer we tend to do a little bit, so we might do a couple of minor spot fixes, but we're not doing any big work there. But these are some of the things under consideration, none of which are cheap, right? So when I go to the next slide and I talk about capital reserve and maintenance reserve, being debt-free, we're relying on capital reserve. I went back, I added it up. Over the last 10 years, between capital reserve and SDA funding, we've done $31 million worth of projects so far. Still going. Okay. What's our capital reserve at now? $29 million. Okay. But we're generating good interest. But you do the roofs and the solar panels, it could be down $10 million. Bathrooms, I don't know, guessing another 15 million.
Wipe out.
We're nearly wiped. Okay, so it's a chunky number. I'm proud of the number, but once you start doing bigger projects, it goes quick. Maintenance reserve is required required maintenance of school facilities. We're at the maximum we're allowed to have in there, $6.5 million. Again, kind of a safety valve for us. Helps with like painting and other maintenance activities if we so need it. Okay. Ongoing challenges.
You should give yourself a lot of credit though, David. That last slide, the first thing it says, district is debt-free. You're talking about other school districts. That is a good position to be in. Very good position.
Thank you. Expenses, I say 2% because that's how much the tax levy can go up, right? So I think a lot of expenses go up more than that. There's a shortage of qualified teachers in certain content areas. I mentioned a few of those when we talked about staffing. Healthcare costs. I talked to the decreasing employee contributions that I expect to see over the next couple of years. Comprehensive support services for families. We have the Haven. We will continue with the Haven. Those costs keep increasing as well. Rutgers is looking for money from whomever they can get it from, including us. So, supports and interventions for underperforming students. I talked about the supports, some of the one-to-one needs. And then generally, technology is expensive and changes rapidly. Okay, tax levy analysis. Top row, 5-year history of tax levy, okay? The for the general fund, the debt service fund, you can see this will be the 3rd year where we are debt-free. We do not have to raise any taxes to pay for our debt. So we have our total tax levy that we'll be asking the taxpayers for. I have here listed the average assessed home. Again, I talked about the increase of 70,000 just from last year to this year. And what does that mean? How much tax does the average household pay? So if your home, if you know how much your home is assessed for, $520,000, we're asking for $4,918 from you to pay for school taxes. The rest of your tax bill is for the town and the county.
Yep.
Okay. So every $100,000 of assessed value equals $945.28 of school tax. So you can go home and get that little card they mailed you a couple weeks ago and see
Yeah.
what your assessment is, and figure out how much of it's coming here.
52.18%.
It goes based, I guess, on your assessment of your house, that they keep assessing every year. They assess the lands.
This is the 5-year summary of that assessment along with the increases. And you can see, we can't shy away from, it's nearly a $400 increase in the school tax levy for this coming year. What I tried to do is explain why it's necessary, what we will use it for, why it's important, because we are at risk of losing state aid next year based on trend. But when you look at the expenditures that we're doing, we're run pretty efficiently. And Piscataway is a highly regarded community within Middlesex County. Whether you want to just talk about reputation or you want to look at the hard numbers, your home values. People want to live here. So.
And once again, the average over the past, how many years? 10 years was 2.5%, right?
Yeah.
Did I put that at the bottom? There we go. Sorry. And when you look at a 5-year basis as well, we need to talk to people again in the community. Over these 5 years, the average would only be just under $131 a year. Last year it impacted taxpayers only by $36. The year before that, only $35. 5 years ago, only $2.
Yeah.
We asked for $2. So it's not, I don't take joy in asking for 396, but, I try and take a longer term perspective. And here's our calendar where we go from here. Tonight, I hope you'll approve the resolution submitting the budget. I will get that into the county by next week for their approval. That window between March 20th and April 24th. For us, historically, has always been fairly quiet. This budget, once approved, is pretty much done and dusted, and we will have our public hearing and budget adoption the 24th, and then the budget you'll get your budget books that we always distribute for that April meeting with a summary of the budget, and then the day after, I'll post the user-friendly budget on the website. Any last questions?
Sorry.
Ooh,
Wake up, everyone.
wowzers, that was a lot.
David, thanks. Great job, really.
Yes, thank you.
As always. That concludes my report, Madam President.
On to the next thing on the agenda, committee reports. Dr. Connors?
Well, the Fiscal Plannings and Operations Committee met on Wednesday, March 5th to discuss the 2025-2026 budget, capital projects, and more. On the budget, we reviewed the preliminary budget draft information and worksheet that David puts together. You saw all of it tonight, the detailed part about how we're 2% property cap, and then we're going to be asking for the healthcare waiver on some bank cap. And facility capital projects, Piscataway High School Media Center and acoustical upgrade projects. The introductory meetings were held with both contractors on site at Piscataway High School. The contractors are working on schedule for completion of the work. 2 quotes were received to replace the Anthony Gym bleachers. A resolution to award a contract is expected to be on the March 13th board meeting agenda. Piscataway High School wood shop dust collection. Sheet metal workers have been installing new dust work after school. New duct work after school. The removal of the classroom mezzanine is being completed. Electrical work and installation of the dust collection unit will continue through spring break. The PHS intercom public address clock system. The district administration is waiting a revised quote from the vendor with the preferred equipment. So this is going to be for both the 910 and the 1112. It's going to have a unified intercom public address clock system, which we haven't had for a long time. When we put the buildings together, they were still separate. So solar panels, Talva Energy has prepared a scope of work for removal of solar panels at Piscataway High School that's being reviewed for placement on the March 13th board meeting agenda. Food services, Mr. Oliveira participated in Chef Days. I see a picture of him in the superintendent report. If you look on page 3, I was on page 1, but he made it page 3. He was actually out there serving some food. Thank you, David. He participated at Arbor and Grandview by working on the serving line for a lunch period and engaging with students as they ate in the cafeteria. Chef Days continue to be well received at the schools. The district has a guaranteed return from Mascios for the 2025-2026 school year. Mr. Oliveira and Advocate will be discussing Mascios' operational plans as contract renewal discussions get closer. New Jersey School Business Legislative Update. Dr. Connors being noted that Kevin Dammer, who's was the acting Commissioner of Education, he was approved as the New Jersey Commissioner of Education. The committee discussed the no-fee food option bill being discussed by the legislature. Business office, we talked about our investment account. The committee reviewed the current balance on the February 2025 New Jersey Asset and Rebate Management Statement, that's what NJR stands for, and the current interest rates. Subscription busing and food service meal pricing, Mr. Oliveira recommended that the subscription busing rate and meal prices remain the same for 2025-26. Gov deals, this is a way in which we can make some money by putting things out there for sale. David played hardball and he put something out there and didn't get any bids, and then he did it again, and he informed the committee about the sale of equipment, and you got like, how much? You got like
We had what they call shop bot device in the wood shop room. We initially had listed it, and I think the winning bid was between $4,000 and $5,000. We decided that wasn't good enough. We held it back for a couple months. We put it back out, and the successful bidder this time was $12,200. So picked up another $7,500.
Way to go, David, way to go. And that is my report, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Madam.
Thank you, Dr. Connors. Okay, approval of minutes, Ms. Rivers?
Yes, be resolved that the following minutes be approved as submitted this meeting February 13th, 2025, and executive session February 13th, 2025.
Second?
All in favor? Then, special meeting February 24th, 2025, and executive session February 24th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comments from the floor. I'm looking around and I see my usual familiar faces, and I don't think there's anybody here wishing to, I stand corrected. Let me finish the whole spiel. I gotta give my speech. Don't be taking my shine away. The Board of
Madam
Education
President.
recognizes the value of public comments on educational issues and school matters of the community interest. In support of this position, the law established a period of public comment at every board meeting. Individuals wishing to speak must state their name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes duration, but an individual may speak a second time after all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. The board may require that individuals register to speak prior to the beginning of the meeting. Participants may submit written material in support of their position. All statements and or questions shall be directed to the presiding officer, and no participant may address or question board members individually. All speakers are requested to express themselves in a civil matter with due respect to dignity and privacy rights of others whose legal rights may be affected. Please note, while this is not the board's intention to stifle comments on matters of legitimate concern to the school community, the public should be aware that if their statements violate the rights of others under the law governing defamation or invasion of privacy, they may face personal liability to the injured party. If speakers are uncertain of legal ramifications of their comment, the board urges them to seek guidance beforehand from their own legal advisor. The floor is now open. Please state your name and the town you live in for the record, please.
All right, good evening. Ken Simmons, 113 Willow Avenue, Piscataway. Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Kenny, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good evening,
We
everybody.
love having you
Mr.
here.
Chapman, too.
Thank you. My question is in regards to the budget, just a quick question on there. There was a mention of budgeting for improving the PA system within the school, and I wanted to know if that also will include improving the PA system within the football field, which has had some issues over time. I don't know if they've been rectified, but I was just curious to see if that was going to be an improvement, seeing that we had the fabulous grounds there, and sometimes the public address system was spotty at certain games and events.
So the high school PA system project that we talked about in the presentation is not related to the outdoor public address system. What we've encountered a couple times with the outdoor system is exposure to it has been left to the public at times, and we've had some issues there. So the last I heard, we had purchased a gate to lock up the equipment, and I'm not aware of more recent problems with the actual intercom. If there are, I will talk to my guys, tomorrow and find out and test it out. We'll talk to the athletic director, and if there's anything we need to do, I mean, there's a company that we use to work and to try and improve the system, so we'll look into that.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I back in the fall, was when I recognized problems. I'm not aware of problems now.
Okay.
But being that you had this PA line item there, I was curious.
Okay.
Enjoyed the budget presentation, and speak to you soon.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else in the floor wishing to speak in public comments? Being I see no one standing or raising their hand.
Motion to close.
Sure, I got you. All in favor?
Second.
Second.
Public comments are closed. Fiscal plan and operations, Dr. Connors.
Be resolved, the following motions identified as items A through O be approved as presented. And just, there's a lot in here, but a lot has been highlighted, like such as C, which is the authorization for the preschool, and then the other things that our business administrator had mentioned during his budget presentation is in here as well.
Second. Mr. Secretary, can you take the roll?
Mr. King?
Yes.
Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Rivers?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Stafford?
Yes.
Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mrs. Salgado Cowan?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Policy, Ms. Smith. Page 9.
I got it. Be it resolved that the following motions identified as items A and B be approved as presented.
Second?
Mr. Secretary, can you take the roll?
Okay, I just want to say one thing, and that is I want to thank you guys for taking the school facilities names policy and updating it with those recommendations to change the committee name. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Rivers?
Yes.
Ms. Smith? Ms. Stafford?
Yes.
Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mrs. Salgado Cowan?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Curriculum, Mr. Patel.
Be it resolved that the following motion identified as item A be approved as presented.
Second. Mr. Secretary, can you take the roll?
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Rivers?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Stafford?
Yes.
Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Salgado Cowan?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Pupil Services, Dr. Nelson.
Be it resolved that the following motions identified as items A and B be approved as presented.
Second?
Mr. Secretary, can you take the roll?
Ms. Rivers?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Stafford?
Yes.
Dr. Connors,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Dr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Mrs. Salgado Cowan,
Yes.
Ms. Cherry.
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Administrative and auxiliary, Ms. Stratford.
Be it resolved that the following motions identified as items A through D be approved as presented.
Second.
Mr. Secretary, can you take the roll?
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Stafford,
Yes.
Dr. Connors,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Dr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Ms. Rivers,
Yes.
Mrs. Salgado Cowan,
I do want to say yes, but I just want to comment on the donation from Eisenhower PTO, and just comment that's a great thing, as well as the Piscataway Township Board of Education accepting that donation of $6,000. So I think that just want to comment and say yes.
and Ms. Cherry.
Yes.
Motion's
And I
carried.
also want to note that the adoption of our 2025 board goals are also on today's agenda, and they will be printed and put up on the board, replacing the old ones that are up there from '24. Okay, back over here. Old business, Dr. Connors, we got a
Ma-
basketball game to go see. You're limited to 3
Madam
minutes.
President, one item on old business, the New Jersey School Boards Association Master Board Certification that were started. Remember last year, we attained the board certification in December of 2024. We now have 2 years to get the Master Board Certification, which is an additional 10 credits in those 2 years. And I want to give you an update that we got a credit and a half for having New Jersey School Board tell us about the superintendent search. And once we get through the whole superintendent name, we'll get 3 more credits, which means we only have 5.5 credits to go.
And another
until-
year and a half.
At a year and a half, and we will get our master board certification, so
Year and
that's
a
good
half.
news.
Comment.
Okay. That's all I'd say.
Anyone with new business?
New business real quick, I have a couple of things, is that the virtual New Jersey School Boards Association Legislative Committee is meeting this Saturday, and that's where we advocate for all kinds of things across New Jersey. It just so happens that we organize a committee by representatives of districts. Our board president is the New Jersey School Board's representative for District 17. I being on the, from the executive state officers, I will be there as well. But we have an exciting meeting coming up, and we'll learn more about some of the newest stuff going on in our legislature. The second thing is that New Jersey School Board Association, twice a year has its delegate assembly. And I'm happy to say that the nomination committee of the New Jersey School Boards Association has nominated me to be the vice president for finance again for a 2-year period, and there will be election at that meeting. I do not have any of the resolutions yet from the resolution subcommittee, but once I get those, I'm going to try and share them with you so that we know how to vote at that delegate assembly. And that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Connors. Last thing on the agenda, can I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. And we are adjourned.